Okay, that's out of the way. Okay, so we are going to talk about 3.2 today. The title is Zeros of Linear Functions. Okay, so we're not just talking about equations anymore, we're talking about functions. So a linear function I'm squeaking today. So is a function, and remember we already talked about what makes a function. It passed the vertical line test, all that stuff. We already talked about that in chapter 1. But a linear function is a function that makes a line. Does anyone remember what the notation is for a function? Talked about it in chapter 1. We usually use y equals in a regular equation. Do you remember what we use for functions? F of x. Remember f parentheses of x? You call it f of x. Remember, y is the same thing as f of x. They mean the same thing. All we're doing is really replacing y with f of x. Okay? Now, we need to talk about a parent function. A parent function is obviously a function before any numbers are applied. So we've only talked about linear things, right? Linear equations. So the linear function, parent function, is f of x equals just x. Because there's no numbers, right? We're not multiplying by any big numbers. We're not adding or subtracting any numbers. It's just x. That's the original function, okay? And that's kind of like what the equations you had the last couple of problems, right? They had nothing added to the end. They maybe had multiplied, but that was it, okay? And then last thing on this set of vocab is family of graphs. Family of graphs, what it means, it is a group of graphs, obviously, with one or more similar characteristics. Okay, so that literally means in equations, it means the x's. Always pay attention to the x's. So a family of graphs always have the same x to the whatever power. Okay, so all linear families have x. Some may be plus 3, some may be 4 times x, but they all have the same kind of x power. Okay? Just like, right, your families, most of you, a lot of times, you have like the same hair color or something like that. You have characteristics in common. Same thing like that. Okay? Last big one, and these two words mean the same thing, so I'm going to just write them together, is the word root slash 0, because they really do mean the same thing. A root slash a 0, if they say find the root or find the 0, they are really saying can you find the x-intercept? That's what that means. So again, using algebra, how do we find x-intercepts? We talked about it yesterday. If we had an equation, how would we find the x-intercept? Yeah, plug 0 in for y. But if we have a function, do we have a y? No, what's the same thing as y, though? So wherever f of x is, you would replace f of x with 0 if it's a function. If it's y, you replace y with 0. Those two words mean the same thing. They use the word root for equations. They use the word 0 for functions, but they literally are the same thing. Okay, so that's what we are going to do today. I'm going to show you how to do it, and you already know how to do this. We're just going to apply it to actual functions algebraically, and then we're going to do it on the calculator, okay? Especially when we're missing any addition or subtraction, okay? So for example, the instructions say find the zeros of each function. That's the instructions. Okay. So, first one, this is our equation. F of x equals 3x plus 3. Again, they are like, oh, let's make a table. Let's do all this stuff. Don't do that. Just think about how we did this yesterday. If you wanted to find a 0, which in our head we go, oh, that's just an x-intercept, right? What are we going to do to get x by itself? What do we do first? We take 0 and plug it in for this. So all of this is replaced with 0, then equals 3x plus 3. Then just solve. What do we do, Ty, to get x slowly by itself? Subtract 3 from both sides. So you get negative 3 equals 3x. Yep. Divide both sides by positive 3. You get x equals negative 1. So you say, you can write that you have a 0 at negative 1. That's it. This is the algebra. If it just says find the zeros, this is how you can do it, right? Way easier than trying to plug it into a calculator, do all kinds of crazy stuff. Pretty easy. What about this guy? F of x equals 6. That's my equation. That's all I've got. What's different or wrong in your opinion about this equation? Huh? What do you mean? I can't hear you. I literally cannot hear you. Why? There's no x. Is there no x in this equation? My equation literally says 6, doesn't it? So there's no x in this equation, which means can we have an x-intercept? There's no x. No, 0. This equation, the graph of it, is one of those that goes horizontally through whatever y is. It'll never cross the x-axis because it really says y equals 6. Y equals 6 left to right forever. Remember, if the f of x confuses you, you can rewrite it as y equals. If it ever confuses you, you can always replace f of x with y. Okay, it will not throw anything off because they are the same thing. Make sense? Let's do one more and then we'll do it and then we'll mess with our calculators. Number 3. How about f of x equals 2/5 times x plus 6. Will you find the x-intercept of that? AKA find the 0. Try on your own. Where did you find your 0 at using algebra, Isaiah? It's a double-digit number. It's negative. Huh? It is negative 15. Remember, when you move that 6 over, that 6 becomes negative. That's why it's negative. So you move the 6 over, that makes negative 6 equals 2/5. Divide by a fraction or multiply by its inverse. That's the way I like to do it. So I'll get the same answer. Okay? Now, using a graphing calculator. Now, there are some questions, like your homework is 10 through 12, and then 24 through, 32? 10 through 12 is the only ones I asked you to graph, because to me, you're using graphic calculator, and then they want you to actually draw the graph, but there's only 3 of them. 24 through 32 are doing the math, but maybe you might want to try finding the answers just on your calculator so you get practice with it if you have your own, okay? This is how you do it. You might want to also write down the steps of how to do it. So let's first give you a problem. Yours is dead. Give it to me and then grab another. Oh, this one, look, this is what happens. You see the grossness on the back of this? It's because someone cleaned it with a wipe and then soaked it, and then it ruins all the batteries. Yeah, that's why I don't let other people clean them. Huh? No, we're not done. We are still in this section. And I'm going to give you little notes to how to help you remember what buttons to push. Okay, so the problem we're going to do, I would write it down, is f of x equals, I know this goes against everything I've ever said, negative 1.25x plus 3. The instructions still say find the 0, right? But I'm going to show you the other way to do it. Okay, so I'm just going to scoot this up so we can still see the equation. So, to look at something on a graph, I'm going to have to turn this on too so you can see that better. Obviously, turn your calculator on, right? If you're borrowing one of mine, you might see stuff on your calculator. You can always just clear it. Do you see at the top left-hand button, you see y equals on that gray button? Whether or not yours is gray is a different story. Push y equals. Now, if you see mine, mine's got a crazy equation in it because I already used it the other day. Is yours dead too? Okay, grab another one. So anytime you open this, because this is going to happen to you a lot because of the whole, you're going to use these calculators all the time. Anytime you open this, every time you're here, just always clear it, make sure it's empty. No, it just turned off on you because you stopped using it. It's still alive. It says your batteries are low. It's still low. Okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to type this equation in literally right here. Okay, so I gave you decimal for now only because to be silly, but literally you have to use the negative button. Remember, you use a negative button when something is in front by itself. So negative 1.25. Do you see the button next to alpha? You have to use that button for x. And then plus 3, all the normal buttons. Every time you type something in here, please make sure, like, look at your equation, look at your screen. Please make sure it's correct. It has an x, a t, a theta sign, n. That's the x you use. You don't use any other x on here. You always just use that one, okay? So once you double check up here that your equation, this half of it is the same up here, because you see how it says y equals, y1 equals? That just says one of your equations. You all see that? No. Yes? Okay. So if you see top left is y equals, you see top right, what's that button say? Graph. If you push that graph button, you'll be able to see the graph. Now if you're Braden, his like color codes everything, it's really pretty. That's the only thing, that's like one of the real special things about it. You keep killing my calculators? Then you just keep using it until it's completely dead. It's on. I'm going to stop letting you use them. It's right there. Jeez Louise. Now, here's the thing. Just wait a second. If this does not look like this, if your graph, like you only see this much of your graph, if it's real zoomed in, and this is for everybody, you see the middle button at the top, it says zoom. Everybody push zoom. See all those words there? If you go down or click 6, yes, Jimmy. You did something wrong. Let me see. You push zoom?
Oh, I went to it wouldn't even show me the graph.
Okay. If you push zoom and then 6, it'll give you a 10 by 10 graph again. You got too much going on. Hold on. Okay. Here you go. It had that highlighted.
Oh.
It can't be highlighted. It was trying to do 2 graphs at once. So this is Jimmy's. You see up here, you see how it says plot on his equation? If you have something else highlighted, anything highlighted, it's going to try to graph multiple things. Okay, so if it says error when you're trying to push the graph button, go back to your y equals button and just click on that thing. It'll turn it off. Because it can't plot, those plot things are for like scatter plots. It can't do too many things at once. Okay, so you want it to be bare. You want the left side to be just regular lines. It'd say y equals, nothing's highlighted other than this y equals, and that's only because you're typing in that spot. Like that's the only thing that's highlighted on mine because I'm typing there. Okay, now he's got an equation. His looks just like mine, but you see how his is a little off from mine? He doesn't have a 10 by 10 graph. You see the difference? So since his window is a little off from mine, he can push zoom and then 6, and it'll make it a 10 by 10 graph again for him. Zoom 6 is your best friend. So now yes. That means you have other things on there like he did. Yes, because you didn't clear this. I said don't have anything else. You have 5s everywhere. Yeah, so I said clear anything that was already there. Well, that is what I said. So the right one, so they're actually both used. So if you want to load programs into here, like the fact that we can do special things on this, like certain calculus stuff and all that stuff, it's a program you have to upload on here. And Miss Davis, we used to have 2 of them, but I don't know where the other one went. Miss Davis, the only one that has the calculator that does it, that we can like upload things if we wanted to use special programs, is basically what that's for. I think they come. No, I'm going to show you the buttons to do it. But yeah, you could. Zoom, if you push Zoom again, do you see how they say the second one says in, the fourth one says out? If you wanted to, which would only help if maybe 10 by 10 didn't work, maybe you needed more room for some reason. If you wanted to zoom out, I could go to zoom out, push enter. It didn't zoom out yet. You have to actually push enter for it to do it, and it would zoom out for you. But I'm going to show you the buttons to find it. So I'm going to push back to Z6 so I have a 10 by 10 so I can read it. Now to find a y-intercept, these are the buttons you're going to push. I mean an x-intercept, I'm sorry. An x-intercept, you were going to push these buttons. The second button, which is, for me, it's blue. Then you're going to push the trace button, which is right next to zoom. So try that now. Push the second button and then push the trace button. And then what do you see on there? Do you see a word that looks familiar? 0. I always just push the number 2 because it'll click it for me. Right? So I push second, trace the number 2. Then what does it takes you to your graph, right? Everybody's does. On the bottom, does it say left bound with a question mark? So that means the left of that spot. So our x-intercept is right there. I marked on my graph, right? It's right there. But so if you move on your keypad left and right, can you see that your little dot thing, your little cursor is moving up and down on your line? So if you have a line, where's the left of that line, the left of your x-axis? A top x-intercept, the top of it or the bottom of it? If I'm looking at it, where's the left? Think about it. Left is this side, right is this side. If this is my point, is the top the left or the bottom the left? The top. So make sure your tracer is literally just above the x-intercept. Push enter. You'll see an arrow pop up. That means, hey, you clicked the left side. Now go to the right of it, which means scoochies underneath the line. Are you underneath the line with your cursor? Because it says, are you looking for the right bound? Once you are actually, I don't get close to the line. I'm like way far away from the line. I just always see it. Once I'm far away from it, I push enter twice. Not once, twice the second time. And then, did everybody get a decimal? With x-intercepts, you were allowed to tell me decimals. It's okay. And y-intercepts, but we're not going to look for those. So if you want to write it down, second trace 2, left means, ooh, if I could help, if I could spell, top / above. Means above it, because left or right you're going. And then you push enter. And then you go do the right. The hard part is you push enter twice. It's really left enter, right enter twice. And this will change top and bottom depending on if the line goes top to bottom or bottom to top. So the top and bottom will change. Oop, doing too much. So then all you would do is you would write this equation down in your homework, and then all you'd have to do is write 0 at 2.4. And that would be your answer. It would be that quick and easy. You wouldn't have to. Now, if it asks you to graph it, just graph it real quick. Put a point, do a rough sketch, call it a day. I'm not looking for perfection. Yeah, well, let me try to see if I can clean off that mark off my screen first. Yeah. So again, second, trace 2. In this line, left of my x-intercept is above. So I'm going to be above my x-intercept. Be as close as I can. I'm going to push enter once for left. Then I'm going to scoochies underneath my x-intercept and push enter twice. And then if you see it, it says x is 2.4, y is 0. And we're going to do it again and again and again right now with a bunch of different problems. And we're going to even try it with numbers right here that are fractions, so you get practice putting fractions in. So second trace 2, enter once, enter twice. That's the big thing. Okay, eventually you'll do this so much it'll be like second nature. Though it already is kind of boring. Okay? So, another equation. 5 is going to be f of x equals 1/2 times x plus 3. Again, find the 0. So if we're right here, because we just did this problem, go back to y equals. Is everybody on the last equation they just had? Just push the clear button. Make sure there's nothing above or below it. Then you're going to type in your new equation. Since that's a fraction, what did I say about fractions? I always put them in, yep. So parentheses, 1/2, 1 divided by 2, half. Then remember, you use the x button that's next to alpha, right there. And then plus 3. Once it looks exactly the same, push graph. Let her load. Give her some time. You'll see over here, if I go back here. No, hold on. If you look at it the first time it does it, you'll see, watch the corner over here on my screen. If you look at it, it loads. You see those lines? That means it's loading. So you can't do anything until it's done loading. Don't try to push a bunch of other buttons until it's fully done loading. Now you see this again. Now how do we find our x-intercept? What buttons do we push? Second, trace, 2. Now this case, I have to still move left and right on the line. Left is what? Above or below the line this time? Below. So now I need to be below it. I just go far enough that I can make sure I can see underneath it, flashing. Left, enter once. Right, above, enter twice. And then what did you get as an answer? Did we all get -6? Did you get it, Braden? Okay. So then all I have to write is 0 at -6. Pretty easy. The hard part is just remembering the buttons. Chloe, you need yourself a mint? You need yourself a mint or something? Looks like you're about to take a snooze. Okay. You know why this is great? Other than stops you from doing the math. When those numbers are ugly, right? Like ugly decimals and fractions and disgustingness, that's why they're great. Okay? Let's see. Let's pick a real ugly one. Ooh, this guy. F of x equals 3/4, there's no x on it, minus 2/5 x. You can type it in that way. Just make sure you put parentheses separately around each set of parentheses, each fraction. So, clear. Let it load. Does your picture look like mine? Remember, that one you have to use a subtraction sign, not the negative sign, or you will get it wrong. Second trace. Left. I'm just going to be left all the way over here. Right. I'm going to be right all the way over here. Ooh, that's a number. Do you get an ugly decimal? You let me know if you did not get that answer. Now, if they're pretty decimals, like 0.5, 0.33, 0.25, I would think you should be able to turn them into fraction in your mind. Now this, that's over 8. Do I expect you to know that? Not really. Did you get the same 0 as I did? Everybody? Are we still doing it? Ty, you got it? Jace? You still working? Second trace 2. There you go. And then left enter, right double enter. You forgot the 2. Don't forget the 2. He didn't do nothing to you. He's important. Michelle, are you getting it? Okay. Jimmy? Brain? Okay. Isaiah, you good? Okay. Is that bad at all? No? Is that easier than doing the math, especially with the fractions? See? Not a waste. Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna call her a day.